Hello everybody and welcome to Bobo's Hobby. In this video I'm building a room for my 3D space art board. I'm using this black 2mm styrene sheet as my main material. I like using styrene because it's simple to score and then just snap to the right size. I'm using a U profile to use as a guide for my doors. Then using plastic cement, all the pieces are put together. Once everything is glued in place, I leave it overnight and let the cement really sit. The next day, the room structure is really sturdy and I don't have to be afraid of breaking it. To continue with the floor, I'm using the same piece of styrene sheet as a base. Covering the floor with some plastic car sidewalk tiles and drilling out the corners. Using a hobby knife, I made lots of small marks to the tiles to simulate that it's an old abandoned spaceship. Then using some plastic cement, I glued them down and added some rivets. And once the floor is in place, it's time to add some plastic pipes from Games Workshop and my homemade glow-in-the-dark resin tubes that I made in a previous video. Now I don't have a plan here, but more of a general idea of what it should look like. So it was a lot of testing different positions to see what I liked. Using blue tack, I stuck it together to see what it looked like. Then soldering some wires to the UV LEDs and making sure that the wires could run through all the pipes. I used UV resin to attach the LEDs to the glow-in-the-dark tubes. Then threading the needle and attaching everything to the room. using some super glue and baking powder to fill gaps and at the same time adding some texture. Once all the pipes and electronics is in place, it's time to add details. It's like power cords, buttons, and random bits from my bit box. Using a little green stuff and a mechanical pencil top, you can create some nice and simple cord holders. The entire outside is covered with random bits. This is just to create a coherency between all my tiles and to create a feeling that there is something in the space between the tiles. A nice way to add rubble and dirt is to use the plastic scrapings and some sand. Now this process of adding details can go on forever, but sooner or later you have to stop it and just call it ready for painting. A black spray crayon primer and then some dark brown, painted sloppy all over. I tried to cover about 50% to create some nice irregularities. This was followed by zenithal metal spray. Next tip is to cover it all with different shades of washes. Once that is dried completely, a dry brush of silver all over again. And then the time-consuming part to paint all the details in a variety of colors. And then washing it to create that dirty look. Now comes the fun part. I'm adding true rust effects. I'm using here is a scenic rust from Deluxe, that it's basically iron pigments, adhesive and rust developer. And this is a new product for me. It's basically the same as the deluxe version, but it's not as precise. And it gives a different shade of rust effect in the end as well. All these true rust effects takes at least a day to develop, so I set it aside and waited. It's the next day and the rust had developed nicely. Now moving on the weathering part, I'm using here two of my favorite products. It's Model Mates Rust and Verdigris. They're really simple to use. Just paint them on and they will dry in a variety of colors. So the rust will dry in different shades of orange and the Verdigris will dry in different shades of blue-greens. And then as the last step, I'm just re-highlighting some of the cables. And that's the last step for painting the inside. The outside is just recovered with black. And then just dry brushed with a grey. It's time to varnish. I'm using a Montana spray varnish for all my scenery, and after that it's time to remove the masking tape. And to create some nice texture, I'm using a gloss paint to simulate some oil spills. Using UV resin and glow-in-the-dark pigments, I tried to create the effect that some of the tubes were leaking. I really love working with UV resin, it's super fun. And with that last step, it's done. And while building this tile, I also made two end pieces in the same design. I thought that I could work well in a homebrewed scenario. Maybe the Terminators need to destroy all the tubes to crash the Space Hulk, or something like that. I hope you liked this video, and if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. And remember that you can always ask any questions in the comment section below. See you next time and have a great day.